Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Paddocks. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a name you might have heard about recently, Jessica Hawkins. If you don't know about her, don't worry, our girls Edo and Amy did the deep dive for you. Behind the scenes is LeAnne and myself, Chelsea, and I'm actually going to pass it off to Amy to start us off.
Okay, so I'm going to start us off with just a little bit of background about who Jessica is. There really isn't a lot online about Jessica in general. So a little bit of background that I was able to find is that she was born February 16th of 1995. So she actually has a birthday coming up, which is super exciting. She is from East Hampshire, England. She's really known for being a British racing driver and a stunt driver. Yes, y'all heard that right. Stunt driver. She did an interview somewhat recently with Aston Martin where she was quoted as saying, "When I was 7 or 8 years old, I saw a kart circuit in the distance and begged my dad to let me have a go. That was it. I fell in love with motorsport. It was all I could think about, all I was interested in. Having said that, I don't think I ever thought it would lead to where it took me. I was just a young kid really enjoying a hobby I was passionate about, and it turned into a career, an amazing one at that." So we're gonna dive into her career, starting with British Formula Ford.
Yeah. Jessica made her motorsports debut with British Formula Ford at Silverstone. And while her debut was a one-off event, her impressive top 10 finish in both races that weekend drew the attention of, among others, Falcon Motorsports, which Amy will talk about.
Now, in 2015 to 2016, after her strong rookie performance in British Formula Ford, she was picked up by Falcon Motorsport to center the 2015 MSA Formula Championship. She did have to wait until the fourth round of the championship at Alton Park to make her debut, and she only competed in half of the 10-round championship. She did end up finishing 11th twice and placing 23rd in the championship overall. She entered the Bahrain round of the 2015/2016 MRF Challenge and finished 15th in both of those races.
And while her P15 finishes in Bahrain meant she didn't get any points, it was still a huge step for her because, on one hand, she was one of 4 women competing out of the 28 driver lineup. And on the other, she was competing against the likes of Mick Schumacher and Jack Dennis. So impressive nonetheless. Moving on to 2017, when she moved on to Mini Challenge, which was a very good move on her part, I think, because she thrived in that series, scoring 6 class wins and finishing runner up to Matt Hammond in the Pro Division, all in her rookie year.
In 2019, Jessica moved over to the newly formed women's only W Series, where she raced with High Tech GP, where she was 11th after 2-point finishes in the last 2 races of the season. She also competed in W Series in 2020 with Racing X, where she finished with 27 points in 11th position, and in 2022 with Click to Drive, where she finished with 37 points in 9th place. Now, post W Series was where things got a little bit more fun for Jessica in a way. The 2020 season of W Series was canceled due to COVID, so Jessica was able to debut in the 2020 British Touring Car Championship, where she was racing for Power Maxed Racing in the Stenerton circuit. She qualified in 22nd place, where she stayed during race 1. During race 2, she made up 1 place to P21, and then in race 3, she climbed another position to take P20. Now, I know there's not a lot online about Jessica, but I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure Ito would agree with me, we went down the rabbit hole on this woman. She is very interesting. I wish there was more. I did find her website. Her website doesn't give you much, but there are still a few like merch pieces left on her site. I think they're mainly kid sizes. But if you want to support a female in motorsport and you've got like a small kid in your life, maybe check it out. I don't know. But if you know anything about PGP, if you've listened to us for a while, you guys all know that we love fun facts around here. Well, I have a really interesting fun fact that I did not have on my bingo card when doing this deep dive. Jessica holds the 0 to 100 mile per hour lawnmower record. Yes, like the Guinness World Record. This was done in partnership with Team Dynamics and Honda, and the mower itself has a name, and it is called the Mean Mower V2, which I think is hilarious. It's bright red. There are photos online, but I did not have a lawnmower record on my bingo card when thinking of Jessica and doing research on her at all.
Honestly, it just goes to show how should I put this? It goes to show that oftentimes, because there's not that much space for women in motorsports, sadly, to this day, that they have to resort to other means and become badasses in other ways.
You are so right on that. There are not a lot of places for women in motorsport, and so a lot of times you just kind of have to make your space. And I think Jessica did a really good job with that. As I said, I went down a rabbit hole. She's just an all-around badass. Like, as a kid, she was even saying that she wanted to be a stunt woman. And she's worked professionally as a stunt driver on actually quite a few different movies. I found that she worked on Infinite with Mark Wahlberg, who is from Massachusetts, like myself, and No Time to Die, the James Bond movie with Daniel Craig. And for people who are Jurassic Park fans, she actually did some of the stunt driving in Jurassic World Domination, some music videos too. Found a very interesting article where she joked that like she got paid to basically attempt to kill James Blunt, which just made me kind of giggle. I think she had to do donuts with him in the car. I just think it's so cool because as somebody who grew up loving car movies, I felt like all of the stunt drivers I always saw were men, and it's super cool to see a woman in that space where, in my head, even as a female car fan, I always think that it's just male dominated. So it's kind of cool to know that she got herself in there somehow.
And honestly, having seen most of the movies you just listed, Amy, I now want to go back and rewatch them and like really pay attention and see whether I can spot her or something, you know?
And outside of the movies she's done, she did something called Fast and Furious Live, which is all kind of obviously through the Fast and Furious universe and namesake. And it was like a live arena show that featured 11 stunt performers and around 20 different supercars, and basically doing acrobatic stunts from the movies that were all performed live in front of an audience, which I think is just kind of crazy because I just don't know how well that's going to go down in person. It didn't seem like it lasted very long when I was trying to find more information online, but I just think it's so interesting that she's just kind of put her fingers in everything and gone, okay, I want to make a name for myself, but there's no space. So I'm going to just force my way in. And I think that's super, super exciting. I know myself and a few of the other PGP girls had the opportunity to meet her at an Aston Martin event that we were at when we were in Austin for CODA. And not only was she an absolute beast on the karting track, but she was just like such a sweet person. She took the time to talk to anybody who came up to her, even though she flew in that day and was beyond jet lagged. She had a smile on her face. She was so sweet. I got a few minutes of her time and got to talk to her about the podcast, give her a business card, just talk to her woman to woman, and motorsport fan to motorsport fan. And she was just so sweet. I really cannot sing her praises enough. Shout out, Jessica. Thank you for being just such a good person and so nice to everybody at the event. It was fantastic and definitely sold me on Aston Martin more than I already was. It was really kind of cool to see her kart on a track live because we were comparing her to Stoffel Van Dorn, and it was kind of cool to see who took different lines and who had different styles, even in F1 arcade go-kart.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was in Coda, which bummer, but hearing all the girls talk about that event, and then also seeing her ties to Aston Martin, like for example, test driving the car. By the way, first woman to do so in 4 or 5 years, which is sad, but also amazing on her part. And thanks, Aston Martin, for giving her a shot. But it's just, I don't even know how to put it into words how amazing all this stuff is that she does, but also that she will now do with Aston Martin.
So it was announced back in November that Jessica's role within the Aston Martin team will be extended as the team's head of racing for F1 Academy. So she's going to be working really closely with their F1 Academy representative driver, Tina Huseman. I did go down Jessica's Instagram rabbit hole and scrolled way far back, which isn't all that hard. There's not a ton of content on there, but there's enough. It looks like she has coached karting before, so she's not new to the role of working with a fellow driver or being someone's mentor. So I think that's really nice to see that this isn't her first rodeo doing this. She knows what she's doing, and I'm really excited to see how that relationship shakes out for them.
Yeah, and honestly, it feels apropos that a woman should coach a female driver, but at the same time, it reminded me of the fact that I think it was last season, there was no woman like engineer or team person on an F1 podium. And I feel like with women coaching women drivers, but potentially also male drivers in the future, it opens that door again. And that to me is just amazing.
Yeah, so when I did find her what appears to be karting coaching, she was coaching a man. So it's not like she's only coached women before if someone's going to say, "Oh my god, she can only coach females." No, y'all, she has coached men. They can listen, they can follow directions. It's not that hard. Um but I am really hoping that Aston Martin will rely on her more as years progress and as she hones her skills. I'm super excited to see maybe we'll see Jess on a podium. I would love that, to be really honest. Would they necessarily send her up? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I really hope that more teams take a page from Aston Martin's book and bring in their own versions of Jessica and have women on their team that have driven, whether it's to be their F1 Academy kind of mentor for their new young drivers, or just to be an addition to their regular staff for race day. I am really excited to see just how she progresses. She's, for me, someone that I'm really excited to watch her career progress, and she's someone that I would say is my one to watch for women in motorsport.
Definitely. And I feel like with her, it goes to show that motorsport isn't just about the drivers. It's also about the whole team. It's about the big picture. It's not just how the driver performs. They need help from their team. Like they need up to date inputs, who's behind them, and stuff like that. And they also need, for example, mental coaching, physical coaching, etc. And if we can get women into those spaces as a start, if not into, say, F2, F1, then why not? Because we need more women in motorsports, honestly. I mean, the whole reason why we started this podcast was we are female F1 fans or motorsports fans in general, and we didn't see ourselves fully represented.
I am really hoping that we're going to see Jessica in an F1 car a little bit more. I don't know if they can pop her in for like an FP1 sesh or what, but I would love to see them put her in a much more current F1 car, put her on a track with some competition. I'd just love to see how that shakes out. Obviously, we know she's tested an F1 car for Aston before, but there was nobody else on the track with her. I want to see what happens when we can compare her to some of the men on the grid, but that's just me.
That would be definitely interesting to see. And while I know that you don't need a super license to participate in FPs, I don't 100% know what the regulations are surrounding being able to participate in FP1. So I'll definitely look into that. But I think you have to be part of one of the feeder series, which she sadly is not.
Now, I'm sure most F1 fans saw the rumors of a possible new Sky Sports pundit. And I know there were some rumors floating around that it might be Jessica, which I think would be fantastic. I would love some more female pundits and especially people with actual race experience as pundits. I would prefer her over a few other options in terms of women in motorsport who are current pundits. Um, but I don't know how that would go over with fans. I don't know if she's known enough to pull off that kind of a role, but I would love to see it. I think her feedback and her input would be really interesting to just hear.
I totally agree. And I feel like with, especially now that she is closely tied to Aston Martin, people will get to know her more. And that will give her a leg up if she were to become that pundit. But also, I feel like, especially in motorsports, we still have a diversity problem. And I feel like her being part of the LGBTQ community as well would add another aspect to it, would add more diversity to it. So I would love to see it, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, Aston Martin has kind of shown that their ambassadors are able to take some free reign and kind of make space for themselves in terms of pundit work. Pedro de la Rosa has shown that he can kind of take that Aston Martin ambassador role and pivot it into something different. So I'd love to see her, like, even just at Silverstone, like bring her on for her home circuit just for the fun of it. Give me all the local Brits for pundit work for Silverstone, and that would be awesome. I think that would be really kind of cool to see happen. I think she, I feel like we've said repeatedly, she can offer a really unique perspective on Aston Martin as a team itself, but also just as a driver. I think she can give a really interesting perspective. But if people don't follow Jess on her social media, I highly recommend you do. She's got Twitter, she's got Instagram, she's got a Facebook page. I don't know if she's got a YouTube account, but I know she for sure has at least the first three. So if you do not follow her, I highly, highly recommend that you check her out.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like because she will now get more involved with F1 Academy, with Aston Martin, etc., her socials will hopefully pick up because, as we've said before, they are sparse, but we'll see what happens. I mean, honestly, I need people to support her because she is a person that made a space for herself, but also is your non-traditional path. And I feel like these days we have a lot of drivers that go a very linear path into motorsport and progress how they progress through motorsports. So it's very refreshing to see people like her having made their own spaces.
And if we've got any Brits that listen to us, you may actually have recognized Jessica's face from when she was involved in the Queen's Platinum Jubilee back in 2022. She had the opportunity to drive a Range Rover in the procession process. And I think that's just super cool. If you're a fan of the British royal family, that's super cool. If you're just a fan of females doing badass stuff, it's still super cool. I could sing Jessica's praises till I am blue in the face. I feel like I kind of have this whole episode, but she's just a massive inspiration for young girls who want to get into motorsport, for women who want to get into motorsport in different kinds of roles. I just think she's amazing. So for me, I think everybody should become a Jessica Hawkins fan, but that's just me.
Honestly, for me, it's not even that she's a role model for women and girls, but rather I feel like she's a role model for people that have non-traditional paths. Be that in motorsport, be that somewhere else. She's a true self-made woman. She just made her space and is unapologetic about it. And that's what I love about her. And that's why I think more people should know about her.
And we will definitely make sure to keep everybody up to date on if there's new news, whether it's Jessica moving to a different series, anything like that. We will always do our best to make sure that we are shouting out and hyping up all of the amazing, talented women in motorsport.
So now that we talked all things Jessica and talked about females in motorsport in general a bit, let's go to our beloved tradition of the pre-outro, where this week we'll bring you a driver quote from Jessica herself. She actually, in a Sky Sports interview, said, "We can race against the guys." And honestly, as a historic F1 girly, I fully agree with this because we used to have female racers, but in recent memory, they've fallen by the wayside for some reason or another. And honestly, we need to bring them back because we all know women can race.
I just love getting to learn about women in motorsports. We need way more of that in the world, and I think you should let us know on our socials about other drivers that you would like to learn about with us. Everywhere we are at Paddock Girls Podcast, except Twitter, X. There you can find us at Paddock Girls Pod. We're getting close to lights out for the preseason. It's just 19 days away. So get excited, because I know all of us are. Thanks for joining us in the paddock. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.